In my previous posts, you might recall that I often encounter challenging customers. Today, I'm sharing the tale of the biggest buffoon I've ever had the misfortune of dealing with while running my comic shop and selling at flea markets. It was the mid-90s, either 95 or 96. Two kids, around 12 or 13, came into my store wanting to buy a pack of Upper Deck SPX basketball cards. For those unfamiliar, each pack contained a single hologram card with a few rare inserts. The kid paid $5, picked a pack, and when he opened it, he found something unusual. I took a look and saw it was an Anthony Hardaway rookie autograph redemption card. To get it, you had to mail it to Upper Deck, who would then send the autograph card. I checked my Beckett price guide. Back then, online resources weren't available, and saw the card was valued at $500. The kid was ecstatic, jumping with joy, while his friends shared in his excitement. Enter the foolish father. Upon seeing his son's excitement, he looked irritated. He asked what was happening, and the kid told him about the $500 card. I confirmed its value, and when the father heard he'd only paid $5, he became furious, claiming the card wasn't worth the money spent. I explained the process of mailing in the card, but the father was paranoid that his address would be exposed. I offered to handle the mailing myself to keep his address confidential, but he refused, fearing I'd have his phone number too. I offered $100 immediately for the card, way above its value, but he still thought I was trying to cheat him. The father then insulted his son, claiming he was foolish for not realizing he was being scammed. I pointed out that the card would lose its value in 2 months if not redeemed, but the father dragged the kid out, hurling insults at both of us. Weeks later, I ran into the kid and his mother at the supermarket. The kid told her about the card and how his father had thrown it away. She was furious and told the father he was walking home because she refused to be in the car with him. It was a 7-mile walk in December. I never found out what happened after that, but the kid's friend later told me they moved shortly after. I, a 32-year-old, worked for a large family-run retail chain. Despite their numerous showrooms, the company still operated like a small family business. The owner's childhood friend was a senior advisor, and his 4 kids were given prominent roles straight out of high school. I was the only one knowledgeable about the technical details of our products. My job encompassed marketing, training, recruitment, operations, support, troubleshooting, and more. I was bound by a non-compete clause due to the niche nature of my industry, which kept me in a tight spot with little opportunity to move elsewhere. Despite handling multi-million-dollar projects, I was kept on a junior executive pay scale. The senior advisor would nitpick at minor issues like not submitting timestamps or taking too long for lunch. He also advised the boss's kids that they should monitor me closely or face replacement. He had a history of sabotaging anyone who grew too close to the boss. Consequently, the kids started micromanaging me, requiring all communications and proposals to go through them. When I landed a major contract worth $2.5 million, I followed protocol and didn't immediately inform the boss's family. The kids were furious but satisfied with the deal. They told me to take a long weekend, which I did. When I returned, I was summoned to a meeting where the boss's kids and the senior advisor claimed credit for the deal. They tried to downplay my role and refused to give me a bonus or incentive, despite clear evidence of my efforts. The boss sided with his children, focusing on the execution of the project rather than acknowledging my contribution. After 9 years of loyal service with no career prospects, I decided to resign. The senior advisor and the kids were quick to badmouth me, and I was dismissed immediately instead of serving my notice period. My wife's job offer in another country allowed us to relocate. Although I've been unemployed for almost a year, I'm enjoying being a stay-at-home dad and spending quality time with my son. I've kept in touch with former colleagues who informed me that the boss's children and senior advisor mishandled the deal, leading to the client canceling the project. The company started losing bids and clients. The senior advisor later offered me a consulting role, but I declined. The boss's children continue to struggle, and I have no regrets about leaving. Yesterday, My dad asked me to swing by his workplace to swap my winter tires for summer ones. I arrived during lunch hour, which might explain why things went sideways. I moved the tires and tools closer to my car and waited. About 5 minutes later, a car I hadn't seen before, a typical family BMW SUV, pulled up. A woman got out and approached me. Since my car radio was blasting, she asked me to lower the volume, which I did. She then asked when she could pick up her car. I was confused since I wasn't aware of any car service happening. I told her she could come back whenever she wanted. She said she'd be back in 15 minutes and left her keys on my cart. I thought she wanted me to keep an eye on her car. After 30 minutes, she returned with bags of groceries and asked if her tires were changed. I was puzzled and said, "What tires?" She clarified, "The tires on my car," assuming I was running a tire service. Realizing the misunderstanding, I told her we weren't an auto shop. She began to berate me, demanding I change her tires because we had tools and tires out. Her arrogance pushed me to my limit. In Czech, we have colorful curses, so I let her have it, telling her to leave before I did something she'd regret. She threatened me, saying her husband would beat me up, then changed her story to claim her husband was incompetent. My dad, having heard the commotion, came out. He told her we weren't a tire shop and to leave. She continued to argue until she tried to slap me. I raised my hand to block her, and she ended up hurting herself on a pipe I was holding. She left in pain, and I saw her license plate, noting she was from Prague. My dad and I had a good laugh about it afterward. As Karen sped off, clutching her hand, my dad and I shared a hearty laugh about the whole ordeal. We went back to changing my tires and continued chatting about the day's events. Just as we were finishing up, I saw the BMW SUV pull back into the lot. This time, Karen was accompanied by a burly man who looked like he could handle himself in a fight. Karen stormed towards us with a scowl, clearly enraged. She demanded to speak with my dad, who, realizing things might escalate, came over to talk. Karen unleashed her fury, accusing us of ruining her day and making her look foolish. The man, presumably her husband, stood by with an intimidating presence, though he didn't say much. My dad, maintaining his calm demeanor, explained that we weren't an auto shop and that Karen had misunderstood the situation. He offered a polite but firm request for her to leave. Karen, still fuming, tried to argue, but my dad remained unshaken. He suggested she contact an actual tire service if she needed help. Karen finally relented, muttering under her breath about how she'd never return and how she'd make sure to tell everyone about our shoddy service. After she left, my dad and I wrapped up the tire change and headed inside. We couldn't stop laughing about the absurdity of the situation. It was just another day in the life of handling unexpected encounters, but one with a memorable twist. As we finished up, my dad mentioned that he'd heard similar stories from other businesses in the area. It seemed Karen's behavior was a well-known pattern. We joked about starting a blog to share our wild customer experiences, a thought that made us both chuckle. By the end of the day, the whole incident felt like a bizarre but amusing episode in our lives. Karen's aggressive attitude was a stark reminder of how some people's expectations can be wildly out of touch with reality. It was a lesson in patience and the importance of standing your ground. The next day, the aftermath of the Karen incident was still fresh in my mind. I was at my dad's shop, helping out with some routine tasks, when the phone rang. It was a call from a local newspaper. They had heard about the commotion and wanted to get the story from my dad's perspective. I was curious, so I listened in as my dad explained the whole saga to the reporter. He mentioned how Karen had mistaken us for a tire shop and how her aggression had led to the humorous confrontation. The reporter seemed intrigued and asked for permission to publish a short piece about the incident. A few days later, the article appeared online. It was lighthearted and humorous, describing Karen as a classic case of entitled customer gone wrong. The story quickly gained traction, and it wasn't long before local TV stations picked it up. Soon, our small incident had turned into a local sensation. People started visiting the shop, not just for tires, but to hear the story firsthand. My dad and I were happy to entertain these visitors, recounting the tale and sharing a laugh. The whole experience was surreal but entertaining. Then, the most unexpected thing happened. A local tire shop owner who had seen the article reached out to us. He invited us over to his shop for a friendly chat and offered to sponsor our next community event. He had also faced his share of difficult customers and wanted to collaborate on a fundraiser for a local charity. Using our recent viral fame to attract attention, we accepted the offer, and the event turned out to be a huge success. We set up a booth, shared stories, and even had a small stand where people could write their own funny or frustrating customer stories. The event drew a great crowd, and we managed to raise a good amount of money for the charity. The whole experience taught us that sometimes unexpected events can lead to wonderful opportunities. Karen's episode, which began as a frustrating encounter, ended up bringing our community closer together and supporting a good cause. And so, life went on with a new perspective and a great story to tell.